A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 198th episode of the Together for Education webinars presented by Notebook. 2.5 years back, when the pandemic reached outside our windows and schools had closed down, we here at Notebook felt it was our responsibility to set up a platform for educators to connect meaningfully on discussing problems they were facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning and arrive at common solutions. Today, 198 episodes later, this platform has grown much bigger than we could have ever anticipated, all thanks to your love and support. We have discussed extremely curricular topics here like digital learning, NEP and assessments, extracurricular topics like sports and theatre, topics like school finance and management, and even evolved topics like mental health. Today, we have a very important topic, building institutional culture. Institutional culture can be understood as a mutual, collective shaping pattern of school behavior as a whole and shared values, which gets into the DNA of the students in their growing years. It is a very, very important part in the development years of a school and one of the primary admission criterion of many parents. But how do we build the appropriate culture which stands the tests of time and evolves with the passing years giving the very best to its stakeholders? Let's hear from the experts today. Our first speaker on this topic is Major General Neeraj Bali. General Bali is an Indian Army veteran who served for nearly 4 decades as an infantry officer. His rich operational experience came from several tenures on the borders at Jammu and Kashmir, the Northeast, and Africa. After retirement, he has been the CEO of an educational society running 92 schools and colleges with over 40,000 students on its rolls. Later, he was the CEO of an engineering company that supervised the construction of significant infrastructure projects in India and abroad. He is a trainer and a global speaker. He is also a teaching faculty of the Institute for Competitive Intelligence, Germany, and executive fellow of Buxton University, Hyderabad, and a management advisor to a leading cable manufacturer. He is the founder of Leadscapes Advisors, a corporate leadership training and organizational change management company, an MSc and an MPhil. He is also an alumnus of the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies, USA. He is also a life coach and a leadership mentor. His book on organizational culture, tentatively titled Inside a Winning Culture, is being published by Pan Macmillan India in the next few months. General Bali, thank you so much for sparing the time, and a very good evening, and over to you, sir.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Aghore. I'm just going to start by sharing something, and we'll take it from there. All right, so after I superannuated from the army and joined the corporate sector for a while, and even today when I deal with people in the corporate sector, in colleges, there is one lament that I hear very often, and the lament is, "Hamara culture theek nahi hai." Some people say our people are not responsive enough. Others say, there's no accountability. The third says there's too much gossip happening here, and so on and so forth. But nobody seems to really know how to fix this culture. Now, I'm going to start with something very strange. I'm going to show you something about the Indian Army. And while you might wonder as to why am I going to Indian Army, because I'm not here to market Indian Army per se, the answer will become clear to you in a couple of minutes. What I'm about to show you is an interview of a Pakistani officer who was in Kargil in 1999. I'm sure you all know that in Kargil, the Pakistanis had come and quietly captured or occupied those posts which we had vacated. That was the norm. In winters, both the armies used to vacate certain posts because living in those heights is absolutely unviable or appeared unviable. And Pakistanis violated that norm and this came and captured. And it was their assumption that because it is such a tough terrain where even if you walk 5 or 10 meters, you go out of breath, there is no oxygen. No army would be foolish enough to attack up the slopes on hills which are completely bare, bereft of any cover. It is suicide as you start moving up and people on top are firing at you. There is no other way to go but to die. But as you know, we did attack and we did capture every single post. We did capture every single inch of the ground there. So this Pakistani officer who had spent 77 days sitting in one of the posts before he withdrew, all right, vacated it, gave an interview to Time magazine of 12th of July, 1999. So this is verbatim from Time magazine. I'm not sharing a WhatsApp forward as is the norm these days. And you don't have to read the whole slide. I have highlighted certain portions for you. This guy told the Time magazine, he said, when the war started in May, we mowed down many of the Indians. But those Indians were crazy. They came like ants. You killed 4. And then they were 10. And then you fired at them and they were 50 and they were 100. They just kept coming up. Our fingers got tired of shooting at them. And there was a time we got very nervous that we would run out of all the ammunition. Now, stirring as this passage is, and obviously it shows the courage and valor of people who just defy death and go up. There's the reason why I'm sharing this with you. And the reason is a question that I ask many people wherever I go and speak. And I say, what is the core difference between those who join the army and the others, who join anything else? What's the core difference? As a matter of fact, this question came to me from a girl in IIM Ahmedabad 4 years ago, 5 years ago. She asked me, she said, so you guys seem to come from the same background as us, and you don't get bonuses. You don't get any appraisal at the end of the year, right? You don't get more money to get shot. So what happens, how is it? What's the difference? And I threw the question back at her and she said, I think the difference is patriotism. And I said, no, that's bullshit because I never heard this word in the army. 40 years, I never heard anybody say we are more patriotic than, say, anybody who's listening today. I hear this word only on Twitter. Somebody said you are better trained, you're brainwashed. None of these answers is true. The true answer is that while there is a slight difference between people who are recruited into the army, in the army selection process, their character is looked at more sharply than it is done outside. But that's a minor difference. Even that's not the difference. You know what the difference is? When anyone who's listening today and people like me who joined the army, the difference is precisely this: nothing, zero. There is no difference. We come from the same demographic as anybody else. People who join private sector or hospitals or railways or schools or colleges or wherever. We come from the same middle class families, the same small towns, the same villages, the same educational background, the same that is why I showed you the first slide. It begs the question, if there is no damn difference, then how is it that some people are willing even to risk their lives when you are absolutely certain that the first few people are going to die anyway? What's the difference then? The piece of magic that happens to us in the army happens after we join the army. And it's called army's culture. That's the one that makes all the difference. All right? And I'm going to tell you how it makes a difference. So let me first stop sharing this because that's all I had to show you in terms of slides. I'm going to be trumped by technology today. I can't stop sharing it. Just a minute. Aghore, can you help me out? I don't know. Oh, sorry, I can. There you are. Okay. So there we go.
All right.
Now, so So this magic called culture, we of course inherited it from the British in the army, and then we tweaked it to our, but we have latched onto it because our dear lives depend on it. And it's that stream of culture which kind of carries us, which makes individuals do fantastic stuff, much beyond what ordinarily would be done. And that is my theme song, that if you focus on the culture of your school, if you focus on the culture of your institution, you will be able to benefit exponentially more from every individual who's colored by that culture. You take my word for it. Now, what is this culture that I'm talking about? This culture is nothing but our collective behavior. It is what we do collectively. You walk into some place and you can instantly see what the culture is. Of course, it takes more to analyze the culture than just looking at it. It is what we do, not what we say. There is no company in the whole world which doesn't say we are customer centric, we are people centric. But is that true? It's not true for many. They're just making profit. And same goes for our schools and colleges. We say a lot of good stuff, which sounds good, but do we really mean it? Now, what shows you that culture makes the difference? When you walk into an old style government office, an old style bank, what do you see there? Things are sluggish. People who had to come at 10 o'clock are actually coming at 10:45. Then they're walking away from their table. Then they're coming back and opening their tiffin. When you approach them for work, they don't seem much interested. They say, please come back after 3 days. I'll look for your file. Why does it happen? You know why it happens? That collective behavior happens because it works for them. Human beings work for self-interest. They see it works. So that's what I will do. Neither my pay, nor my pension, nor my rewards, nor my punishment is going to change because I give this file quickly. That is how cultures get created. There is more to it, which I will talk about in a minute. I have done a detailed study of Indigo. And again, I'm not marketing Indigo. I've been to their training academy. I've spoken to several pilots. I've spoken to cabin crew because they form a tiny portion of my book. Why is it that when you go to Indigo, to the airport, you will, please notice it the next time, you will be gently nudged by somebody who will nudge you towards the check-in counter. You'll check in quickly. Nobody's chatting there. People will hand over your thing quickly to you. You go in. Once you actually check in, somebody will push you towards the bus. The cabin would have already, crew would have already cleaned the cabin. And when the last person enters, they don't wait for the time. When the last person enters, they shut the door and they're ready to fly. And they take great pride in saying Indigo Standard Time. How is it that even more established airlines with greater lineage are not able to copy this? What's the rocket science? What's the trick? The answer is because Indigo has created a culture. Once you go and visit their academy and see other things, you realize how much focus they have on being in time everywhere. And that is what the difference is. So therefore, you know, this morning I read a newspaper, reading in the paper, there's a school where a teacher has thrown a child out of the first floor window. I think most schools cannot even imagine such a thing happening in their schools. But obviously there is a culture of sluggishness, indifference, not caring, even cruelty that is existing where it happened. There are schools, and many of them, where there is a culture where the academic staff is perpetually not happy with these administrative staff. They realize that the administrative staff doesn't know what load they have. And the administrative staff is not happy with the academic staff, and vice versa. This debate just goes on. It goes on even more in colleges, where some of the administrative staff seems to think that the people who are teaching are actually existing for them, to give them data, to give them reports, to be in time, and so on and so forth. It's a culture, and we don't pay attention to it. There are schools where teachers are supported for innovation and creativity. for actually thinking out of the box, this much maligned term which everybody uses. And there are schools where there's such an iron hand from the top that you can't deviate even for a minute from the syllabus, or you can't deviate in anything. You can keep talking about creativity all you like, but there'll be no creative culture. There are schools and colleges where discipline is a way of life. And it's a great pleasure to walk around them and to see how wonderfully they are run. And then there are schools and colleges, I'm sure you're aware, where chaos is the middle name, where even violence occurs. These, I've given you a wide spectrum of examples because there is a wide spectrum that the culture dictates. We look at it, but we are so busy in our day-to-day work, in riding the roller coaster of life, that we don't stop to try and figure out how to change this culture. Now, every school has a culture, every college has a culture, every company has a culture, every family has a culture. Look around how one family behaves differently when it comes to respecting the elders vis-a-vis the others. How one family behaves differently when there's a crisis vis-a-vis the others, because there is a culture. So whether you like it or not, your school is going to have a culture. You can either grow it thoughtfully, reflectively, like a well-manicured garden all around yourself, or you can let it grow like wild grass. It will grow one way or the other. And if you're uncomfortable with the culture, it's because you've allowed at least some portions of that wild grass to really run amok, to really grow. Now, let's talk about institutional culture and your school culture, to be specific. And let me say a few absolutely cardinal points. This morning, in fact, I was talking to one of the principals at the Shivalik International School, Dehradun, and Mrs. Seema, and I was surprised. I was really struck by how clear was her understanding of the culture. And some of the things she said resonated exactly with me. And those things are, culture always flows from top. Culture doesn't rise against gravity. Don't expect the junior most teacher or some student or the watchman to start changing the culture of the school. It's going to start from top. And who's on the top? It's the principal, it's some of the senior teachers, and many times it is the promoter. They dictate, or their behavior dictates, their responses dictate what type of culture will come into being. Unless you start there, forget about changing the culture. It's a hard truth, right? The second is, how do you build it? How do you change it? Please remember that culture is the hardest animal to tame. You can't just wrestle it to the ground. Mark Twain said something about the habits, which I can apply to culture. He said, and I'm replacing habit with culture. Culture is culture. You cannot throw it out of the window. You can only coax it downstairs one step at a time. So here is what you need to do to change or transform your culture. First of all, you need clarity at the top. What is it that you want to change? Do you want more punctuality? Do you want more responsiveness? Do you want to cut out politics? Do you want greater innovation? What is it that you want? Do you want an English-speaking culture, which many schools strive to do because children come from all backgrounds? What is it that you want to do? That clear vision at the top is the starting point. Second, once you start doing it, you need to communicate to everyone clearly and from every single forum what you're trying to achieve. I've seen smart, wise leaders standing up at every stage and saying, as you know, we are trying to change this. They want to put it into your memory, into your DNA. You even do training and workshops. For example, if you're trying to change the relationship between the academic staff and the teaching staff, the administrative staff, you could do workshops, you could do training, you could have several dialogues for each to understand each other's problems. Third, other than repeating it every forum, this is the key. You need to build those elements in every SOP, in every process, in every procedure, in every norm, in every tradition, in everything. You can't be wanting a culture and your norms are totally different. The Indian Army wants to make sure that no soldier is left on the battlefield. So if somebody was to leave a soldier on the battlefield injured, he will certainly lose his pension and go home, might even be jailed. The Indian Army sets a lot of store by probity, honesty. So if somebody's caught making money, he is definitely going to lose his pension expeditiously. The Indian Army believes that men, officers, anybody misbehaving with women, especially on the battlefield, need to be court-martialed. You would be court-martialed. But if a soldier makes an error of judgment, he fires at a militant and unfortunately hits somebody else, chances are he will not be punished severely. We make a distinction. Only the elements of culture we want to protect are the ones we protect with awards, rewards, and punishments where it is violated. All right. So please remember that. I mean, you cannot be the owner of a famous beer making company, step out of aircrafts, jet aircrafts, spend 90 lakhs on your birthday, and then say, you know, we in Kingfisher want to have austerity. It won't work. 3, your rewards and punishments must absolutely be in consonance with the culture you want to build. And they should be fair. They should be even-handed. There should be consistency in them. Half the trouble is that when the leaders start liking somebody, that person gets away with murder. And the rest of the gang gets pulled up for everything else. You've got to be consistent. If you want to build, you know, there is a college in Maharashtra I'm an advisor to, and they've been talking about building an English-speaking culture. It's not working because there is no punishment for a professor not to teach in Marathi. It doesn't get reflected in his report. There is no column in the report which reflects it. Why would he do it? Why would he take the easy way out where the students understand Marathi better than English? As a result, there is no culture. So please remember that. It's not going to happen merely by standing on the stage and inspiring everyone with talks. Next, you always can change only by example, by your own example, the example of the leadership. Please remember, whether it is your own children, your students, or your teachers, or anybody else, people do what you do. People don't do what you say. And finally, you need to persist. It's going to take a long time. People believe in status quo. People are resistant to change, especially change that hurts their work. So it's going to take time. So persist and persist. And I'm going to end by telling you, it's such an important subject, this whole thing of culture. One of the management gurus, Peter Drucker, said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can make any fancy plan for your school or your college or your institution. The fact of the matter is, unless there is a culture of the organization which backs it up, your strategy will remain just a piece of paper. Culture eats strategy for breakfast is what Peter Drucker said. And I have just kind of amended it to say culture and strategy should have breakfast together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I take it from there with a big salute to Indian Army and a very big thank you to you for those wonderful, wonderful deliberations as always. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker on this topic is Mr. Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, a fellow of the ICAI, a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland, and a member of CIMA UK. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. An avid reader and a passionate traveler, Achin has keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He's a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He's also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, a very good evening, and over to you, please.
Good evening, everyone. Kauri, am I audible?
Absolutely.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session. Now, there are many factors that determine the level of success an organization achieves, irrespective of industry. But one that is often neglected and yet is the most critical one is its culture. The culture of an organization is immensely important, defining not just the environment in which team members work, but also the mission, the values, the expectation, and goals of an organization. So creating a culture that attracts and adequately motivates top talent is paramount to success. There cannot be any two ways about it. The more invested people are in the organization, the more they believe in the cause, the more they're aligned to the thought process of the leader, the harder they will advocate for the organization's success. They'll stand for the core mission, for the values. They'll actually believe in them. Naturally, those values will be inculcated. Now, investing in team members lie at the heart of people's operation, an innovative approach to human resources and business development. Only when people are happy, they're engaged, they're productive. So naturally, business is better positioned to succeed. Now, creating a strong company culture, I think it impacts the mindset of every individual team member, every individual staff member. And it influences the way they behave. And when I say they behave, both the way they behave with external stakeholders, with outsiders, as well as how they behave and communicate among themselves, and how they represent the institution, the organization in front of the external world. Because as brand ambassadors, the values cultivated through an organization's culture also establish any team members' priorities and determine how much they themselves believe in it. Or is it just a mere 9-to-5 job? Stanford Graduate School of Business has come up with a framework and has defined it in very simple terms. So if you go by Stanford's framework as to what is important to create a successful culture, and I'm talking of any organization, first and foremost, finding the right people. Second, aligning them, ensuring that they actually believe in the cause. The fact that they're ready to invest not only their time, but also their aspirations, their emotions in the organization. Third, very important, giving them real-time constructive feedback. And also giving them a say in the way the organization is run, ensuring that their voices are heard. And naturally, team building. The other aspect which is very important is also continuously taking interest in the way team members are rewarded. And when I say rewarded, of course, both ways. The way a particular feedback is communicated and what are the consequences for the same. The other aspect is ensuring that they're adequately engaged. Now, how do you engage them? How do you engage a new intern who has walked into the premises last week? How do you ensure that he or she is as invested in the organization as the CEO? I think that is any organization's biggest challenge. Every individual is unique. Every individual comes from a different family, maybe different socioeconomic background, different priorities, different dreams, different aspirations, different challenges, different constraints. Now, how do you ensure that we are able to build a team so that everyone is adequately motivated and believes in the same mantra? And the other very important aspect is reinventing, ensuring that people are willing to unlearn, because that is very critical in today's age. I think even more critical than learning, the willingness and ability to unlearn so as to remain relevant in a changing world. Now, when we discuss about institutional culture in the context of schools, most school leaders, principals, they already have an instinctive awareness. They understand that organization culture is key element of the school success. There's no doubt about it. And we also know that if you ask any school leader, the opinion will be the school has a good culture when teachers are expressing a shared vision. And of course, students are succeeding. That's the ultimate objective. Or the fact is that many a times, after doing a realistic assessment, after a change in roles, depending on changing priorities, we also need to work on the school culture. For instance, several teachers resigning at once, or instances like students' disciplinary issues rising. Of course, it calls for self-introspection, it calls for changes. But what are the elements that create a positive culture? I think it's very tricky to define. And also, identifying individual components can be very challenging. But once leaders understand what constitutes culture, once they learn to see it, not as a hazy mass of intangible, but as something that can be actually pinpointed and designed, they can start to execute a cultural vision. And a culture can be strong culture or weak, depending on the interaction between people in the organization. Of course, in a strong culture, we all know that there are many overlapping interactions at various levels. Knowledge is spread. People are all aligned. And that is so important. So for example, whether that be beliefs, that be values, that be actions, those will spread very fast. If today, not only leaders, senior teachers, not only they will be motivated, but each and every staff member is equally motivated, both teaching as well as non-teaching staff. They all believe in the purpose. They really want to ensure that their institution is the best. So in a strong culture, definitely leaders will directly communicate. So principal directly communicates with every teacher and ensures that his or her message actually reaches each and every individual staff member. Likewise, the culture can be weak when there are fewer connections. For example, in an institution, there are certain new teachers, trainees, etc., who never get an opportunity to interact with the principal or hear from them, or those opportunities are very, very far and very few. Now, culture is also like, if you look at it, there are various elements which actually influence culture. First and foremost, of course, most important, the fundamental beliefs and assumptions. And when I say fundamental beliefs of not only the principal, but each and every member who is involved in the ecosystem. Shared values. So is there an element wherein people, they actually share those values, or are they only mere lip service? And third, norms. Do members believe that they should act and behave in a certain way? Do they actually know what is expected of them? Because behavior is something which is very, very important. And then again, tangible evidence, be it physical, visual, auditory. So as to ensure that, what the leaders believe in, what their expectation is very clearly communicated. So clarity in terms of communication, clarity in terms of expectation setting. And unless until that communication is clear, any SOP won't do the trick. What is most important is each and every person has to understand, okay, this is exactly what is expected from me. And not only understand, but also believe in it. Because unlike machines, human beings won't be able to completely align with something till the time they actually believe in it. So it's important to have a healthy dialogue. It's important to hear from the other person. Important to ensure they actually start believing in it. Now, there are 6 steps to shape a school's culture. I think first and foremost, I think the most important and critical role, of course, is of the leader. Because at the end of the day, every individual teacher, every individual non-teaching staff will look up to the principal. Second most important element, of course, is in terms of selection of new people coming in, new teachers coming in. Do they actually believe in the same values? And not only while selecting, but also equally important is post-selection while mentoring. Because it is really important that they are mentored in such a way that expectations are clearly met, that they are completely aware of that, okay, these are the conventions here. This is what is expected from us. And as I already said, communicating the vision. Now, communicating the vision is often the most complicated task. There might be 2 individuals who are both, equally dedicated to the cause, both who believe principally in same objectives. But very often what happens is lack of communication. And when I say communication, communication has to be fact-based. So first of all, team members have to actually believe in it, that yes, the institution indeed has a great potential to succeed. We have a vision for ourselves that this is exactly where we want to be in next 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. Second, also using data and facts to reduce ambiguity about the vision. Third, human beings are fundamentally emotional creatures. So unless and until we appeal to people's emotions, values, it is very difficult to motivate them by mere numbers. They actually have to believe in it. They actually have to believe in the story. Next, very important is staying positive even while taking a negative critical feedback. A new individual staff member might have something to say, but it's really important to give a patient hearing, staying positive, and ensuring that we're able to align him or her in the process. Again, for any organization, not only for school, for corporates, for any organization, I think the way vision is communicated very often makes a huge difference. There's a huge difference between communicating something with an I and with a we. So that sense of team building, the sense of bonding, and of course, making the vision tangible as much as possible. So I think these are few elements which are very important in terms of shaping or building institutional culture. Jay Bali gave us a wonderful overview. I think great way to start with some very nice examples. These are a few thoughts that I wanted to share. But we are a very senior panel here today, panel of esteemed principals with decades of experience. And I'm sure that we all look forward to hear from them, their take on this very, very important topic. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. Over to you, Gauri.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Achin, for those wonderful deliberations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a wonderful topic today to discuss this particular topic. We do have a wonderful panel, I'm sorry. But before we start with the panel discussion, a little bit about us here at Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech platform that creates short videos pertaining to the school curriculum. This means that every topic from every subject of the school syllabus has been converted into a series of short videos that can be used in 2 different cases. One is when you, as a teacher, are starting out a topic in your classroom, you can play one of these videos as a method of visually introducing the topic to your students. These videos are just 6 to 10 minutes in duration and take up very little of your class time while offering the right kind of material to the students to generate curiosity and excitement. The second is when the student is studying at home months later. They have access to the same videos on their personal devices, be it a laptop or a smartphone. They can watch the videos over and over again until they get a very clear understanding of the topic that you had taught. What I am going to do now is play you a part of a notebook video so that you know what they exactly look like.
इस कहानी में राजा की कुर्सी का क्या हुआ, उसी के बारे में बताया गया है। राजा की कुर्सी अर्थात राजा का सिंहासन। हम सभी विक्रमादित्य के नाम से बखूबी परिचित हैं। भारतीय इतिहास में उनका शासन एक मील का पत्थर रहा है। विक्रम संवत की शुरुआत इन्हीं से हुई। लेकिन ये थोड़ा अजीब है कि हम उनके जीवन के बारे में बहुत कुछ नहीं जानते, मगर उनके बारे में एक चीज प्रमाणित है कि वे जस्टिस और लर्निंग से प्यार करते थे। हमेशा सही न्याय किया और अपने दरबार में ज्ञानी और विद्वानों को सही जगह दी।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a small part from our synopsis video as you just now saw. We today have connected with over 3,500 schools and have had more than 61 lakh students benefit from our videos. If you head over to our website www.notebook.school or use our mobile apps for Android and iOS, you would find more than 10,000 such videos at your disposal. With that, it is now time to introduce the wonderful panelists that we have with us today. We have with us today Ms. Nutan Budhiraja, Principal, Learning Path School, Mohali, Punjab. Ma'am was a BA and an MA in Political Science and in Public Administration and BA. She has taught and headed an American and IGCSE Cambridge curriculum in Middle East for almost 13 plus years. She has also headed the team for American and QNSA accreditation process in 2 established schools and worked in some prestigious schools in Delhi and Mohali. Ma'am has also taught in Delhi University colleges. Her current school, which she is heading, is a school ranked number 1 in Mohali in the category of Co-ed day school. She has also been awarded the Best Teacher Award and the SOF Best District Principal Award twice. Ma'am, a very good evening and welcome to the panel. We also have with us today Ms. Rupal Upadhyay, Principal, Aghore Vidyapeeth, Pandidala Akaltara, Chhattisgarh. The school is managed by Aghore Jan Seva Abhed Ashram Trust, where they educate the underprivileged, tribal, and orphan children to make them more confident enough to join the main league. Ma'am holds a MSc in Botany, BA, and a PhD in plant pathology. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us today and a big welcome to the panel. Kindly request both the panelists to switch on their cameras, please. If I can start with Rupal, ma'am.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening. Ma'am, a very good evening. I have this question for you. What are the steps you're taking towards building your institutional culture? You're in a school which comes from a very different socioeconomic background. So what are the things you're doing in school?
See, creating a great organizational culture requires developing and executing a plan with the clear objectives that you follow or what you have to do. Being a rural school, we have to be more, what can I say? We have to be more thinkable for them that what can we do. So first of all, we have to do the excellent recognition. जब तक हम उन बच्चों को देखेंगे नहीं, जब तक हम उन टीचर्स को ईच एंड एवरी पर्सन, ईच एंड एवरी स्टाफ मेंबर्स, ईच एंड एवरी स्टूडेंट्स, जब तक हम उन सबको रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं करेंगे क्या क्या उनके एफर्ट्स हैं, जब तक हम उन चीजों को देखेंगे नहीं, तब तक हम एक अच्छा ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल जो कल्चर है वो हम नहीं बना पाएंगे. देन वी हैव टू इनेबल द एम्प्लॉय वॉइस. इफ creating a culture that values feedback and encourages the employees to voice is essential, as failing to do so can lead to less result and demotivated staff. In this time during the pandemic and right now, whatever we are facing and being with the underprivileged students, it is more important for us to allow them to raise their voice. If कुछ भी ऐसी चीजें हो रही हैं जैसे उनको बताना है, कोई बात है, वो हमको, हाँ एक चीज ऐसी होती है कि हम उसमें कोशिश करते हैं एक ऐसा पैटर्न लें जो सबके लिए बहुत इजीली एक्सेसिबल हो, कुछ ऐसी चीजें हो, कुछ फीडबैक्स हो जो हम उन बच्चों से ले सकें, हम उन टीचर्स से ले सकें, और वो सारी चीजों के साथ में हम फिर देखें कि क्या है जो काम कर रहा है और क्या कौन सी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो काम नहीं कर रही हैं, और उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम फिर अपने कल्चर को डेवलप करने की कोशिश करें. Then the third thing what we need to do is to make our leaders the culture advocate. If the school success in building a strong workplace or a culture rests in the hands of the team leaders and coordinators, and I truly believe in it. Your leadership team can help build the culture you need by prioritizing it in every aspect of their work life. जो भी हमारे ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं, जब तक हमारे लीडर्स जो है उन चीजों को एड्रेस नहीं करेंगे, हमारे कोऑर्डिनेटर्स जब तक उन चीजों को पेरेंट्स तक, स्टूडेंट्स तक, सोसाइटी तक नहीं पहुंचाएंगे, तब तक वो चीजें ऑन ग्राउंड हमको रिजल्ट को नहीं दे पाएंगी. इसलिए बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है कि जो भी हमारे लीडर्स हैं, जो भी हमारे कोऑर्डिनेटर्स हैं, वो बहुत अच्छे से हमारा जो कल्चर है, हमारे जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं उसको एडवोकेट कर सकें. एंड देन वी हैव टू one step which is very essential is to focus on learning and development. Great workplace cultures are formed by the staff who continually learning, and companies that invest in the staff development, it is very important. We always being in school, being an institution, and being related with the education system, we always provide the training initiative to the staff, remedial classes for the students we need to provide, and providing the student and the teachers as well as the parents with the new responsibilities. जब तक हम उनको कुछ new responsibilities नहीं देंगे, तब तक उनको भी ये नहीं पता चलेगा कि हम किस किस चीजों को कर सकते हैं. हो सकता है कि कुछ ऐसी चीजें हैं जो शायद हम एक स्ट्रेट कुछ एक पुराने जमाने से चली आ रही चीजें हैं और हमको उसको वैसे ही करना है. इफ हम वो उसी चीज को लेकर के फॉलो करते रहेंगे तो बहुत सारी क्रिएटिव चीजें हो सकता है कि हमारी नजरों से चूक जाए. और इफ हम एक वो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हमारे स्टूडेंट्स को या न्यू स्टाफ मेंबर्स को देते हैं, तो हो सकता है कि उस चीज को पूरी करने के लिए एक कुछ नया क्रिएटिव वे, आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स थिंकिंग जिसको हम कहते हैं, वो वे हमको वहां से मिल सके. एंड लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, it is the era of personalization. Every little gifts और जो भी चीजें, छोटी छोटी चीजें हमको आजकल पर्सनलाइज करके बहुत ज्यादा पसंद होती हैं. हम हर एक चीज को पर्सनलाइज करने की कोशिश करते हैं. In our workplace also, we always try to personalize the experience. As the modern era, everyone expects personalized experience. So we need to focus on the ways to help the tools like pulse surveys or the employee journey mapping or the student's profile or the performance index. There are various ways, various documents through which we can do the personalized experience thing, and then we can watch out what the things each and every staff and each and every student is doing, and that can help build them a great institutional culture.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Would come to Nutan, ma'am. Ma'am, a very good evening, and thank you so much for waiting. And welcome to the panel. It has always been so nice to have you back in the panel. Ma'am, I have two questions for you. First is, how do we build the appropriate school culture, like the institution culture? And who do you think are the major contributors amongst the stakeholders in the school ecosystem to build the appropriate institutional culture?
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be part of this panel once again, talking about something which is so close and so very relevant in the times that we are living in. I think as a school, we need to first begin by defining the word culture itself. We need to have a broader understanding of the word culture and what it means to a school. Basically, everything that happens within a school and how it happens is what the culture of the school is all about. And you can talk about the values, the belief systems, the kind of practices, the kind of approach and attitude we have towards the different stakeholders. I think all of that combined together is what is to be understood as school culture, for example. School nowadays are becoming not just four walls within a boundary, but I guess it's becoming more of an institution. In a school, you are building the character, the personality of the students who are going to go out and become a part and make some contribution to the community, whether immediate community or the larger global citizen as we talk about them. So school have a lot to contribute towards creating the skill sets of the students, which would then foster a kind of a very positive and a healthy kind of a cultural change that we're wanting to look at. We talk about the culture, Major General was talking about culture in the homes, for example, in a community, for example. And I understand that very, very well. And I also believe that, yes, culture in a school begins right at the very first person that you come in contact with, which would be the security person, for example, and all the way inside. when you talk about the teachers, the faculty, the administrators, the people who are in the admission office, they have to have a very shared and a very clear understanding and a commitment to the values, to the beliefs, to the vision and mission of a school, for example. I strongly believe that, unless there's clarity about what this school is all about, there is no movement forward. You're only doing what every other school is doing, which is to teach the curriculum and have the students take the board exam and walk out. But the schools, learning path school particularly, we very strongly believe that we have much more to do than just teach the curriculum, which any school would be doing. So the shared beliefs, the values that we have in our school start from the top, obviously go all the way down. From the bottom up, a kind of an approach is also there. Every one stakeholder in our school has a role to play in developing the kind of a culture. There has to be a very clear set of communication between the faculty who joins us, for example. There are teachers coming into our school from various backgrounds with different kind of experiences, with their own understanding of cultural belief. But once they step into a school like an LPS, we need to understand where are they coming from and what would it take for them to become a value addition to the school's culture. We don't want disharmony over there. Of course, there is this role of a professional development. And of course, there is this role of the leadership in a school, starting from the managers or the directors, the principal, the department heads, the housemasters. I think everyone has to have that kind of an understanding. And a disharmony or a disconnect at any one level is going to be so much more disruptive to the kind of culture that you're trying to develop. The question about who are the major stakeholders or the contributors, ultimately, I guess it's the students, the faculty, the parents, the community from which they come from, and then, of course, the people who make that school happen. I think a lot flows from the top management as to what is their vision, what is their aspiration for a school. That to a large extent is going to define the cultural expectations, aspiration of the school as a whole. So ultimately, everyone has a role to play and everyone is contributing to it. The communication between the students, the parents, the teachers has to be continuous, right? So which means any one stakeholder who feels left out or is not a part of the equation is not going to help you further the cultural expectations or aspirations in a school to a large extent. Therefore, I would believe once you've set your goals, your vision, your mission, your objectives, and once you take it forward and you communicate it to the community at large, then after that, everyone who comes and joins you has a role to play and is a stakeholder. It all begins from the top, but goes all the way down. Every one person who walks into the school, therefore, is very much a part of developing this kind of a cultural ethos, the work practices. We are talking about a culture that would lead to stability, that would lead to some kind of consistency to what a school is. A school should be known by, let's say a student walks out of the school, should have the stamp of that school. Well-groomed, cultured, sophisticated, speaking in the kind of a language which is a little marked different from the others, right? We talked about creativity, you talked about innovation, you talked about critical thinkers. We are talking about 21st century skills that are very much a part of our school cultural aspirations. We do want our students to have the value systems and the beliefs that will take them forward, and they could become, therefore, valuable members of the global community at large, because the movement of the students in today's time is huge. They're moving up and down, whether they stay within the country or go outside the country, but their culture defines who they are. And it is the value systems that a school is trying to impart to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, sir, absolutely.
So, they say that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but listening to Ms. Rupal and listening to Nutanji, I was really struck by how cogently, how beautifully and articulately you people have put across this whole thing. I mean, I just touched it on the surface, but the number of things that both of you covered, really from macro to micro, is really very impressive. So thank you very much for adding to my knowledge and understanding. And one of you is from Mohali. I don't know, is it Rupal who's from Mohali?
Myself.
Or is it-
Nutan ma'am, Nutan ma'am.
Okay, so I'm in Deravasi,
Okay.
not too far. And
Yeah.
if anything, and I'm not making a commercial kind of a offer. Anything I can do for your school, because I'm intimately interested in schools. Please get in touch. I'll put my email down in the chat.
Definitely.
It'll be
Would
my
love to
pleasure.
stay in touch with you and carry forward this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, I have this question for you, since you're there. Who do you think are the major contributors amongst all the stakeholders towards institutional culture?
It's both of them covered it. It's I was struck by the number of times the word leader was used.
Mhm.
You see, like I said, eventually it is going to flow from the top. And
Absolutely.
top means different things in different contexts. In a school where there's a promoter and there's a director and there's a manager and people who actually run the roost, fortunately or unfortunately, that is the top. And the principal, of course, has a great role to play, but that becomes the top. If I may put it a little obscenely, it is the person who's holding the pen in his hand and who can sanction things and money becomes the top. When you go to family-owned businesses, you go to family-owned companies, for example, it's the promoter, not the CEO. Everybody's looking at him because he's the guy who's going to finally sanction the bonuses, increments, and what he says. And it's not what he says, it's people watch him. For example, I was in a company where the promoter would say people waste time here and they do. And I would see he would call his favorite people and they would sit in his office for 4 hours gossiping about everybody else. That's how it gets created. So top person has a. When you go to multinational companies or more organized companies, there the one top man doesn't hold that kind of sway. Then it is more of the top leadership collectively and the processes that set the culture. So it's a different answer for different things, but by and large, if you want to look for a culprit or somebody to reward for culture, look up. Do not look down.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So it's all about setting your goals, defining the culture, following it, and a clear communication channel so that new entrants get the feel of the same culture which has been incorporated since the inception. So we had a very meaningful discussion, I must say, and I would want to call back Achin for the vote of thanks, please.
Yeah, I think wonderful session we had. I think and very seamless and very interactive session as well. General Valley, thank you so much, sir. Whenever you're here, I really look forward to the sessions. I think great learning, some wonderful examples, and of course, I think when we hear about Indian Army and that too such examples, really as an Indian, we feel so proud of the institution. And also, I think the other point that you made while answering your last question, very relevant. That yes, I agree with you completely. Culture always flows from the top, and depending on the type of organization, whether it's an MNC or a family-run organization or a school for that matter, but yes, it does flow from the top. And so that is why it's so important for the person at the top to ensure that he or she sets the right example, because it's not about what we say, but exactly about what we do. So I think great points, Rupal ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your views. I agree with you, and I think you analyze the whole thing in a very different perspective, especially with regard to personalizing the whole experience. So the importance of individuality within a collective framework. So I think very well said. Nutan ma'am, thank you so much. Again, whenever you're here, the great sessions. Thank you so much for coming back. I think you made a very relevant point with regard to shared values. And when you say shared values, all members, so be it teaching staff, non-teaching, so everyone inside the gate, everyone inside the institution. And I think every single person has a huge role to play. Of course, the person at the top might be he or she might set the ball rolling, but I believe each and every individual person can indeed make a huge difference. And when I say difference, both ways, either positive or negative. And also, I think you also made a very important point, and I think that is a very that calls for deep self-introspection, calls for lot more deliberation. Maybe we can have a full session on that. That role of schools, I think it's far more far beyond only teaching curriculums. So that of course is there. That's fundamental. That's bread and butter. We all agree that's important. Preparing students for board exam, of course, as they go up, other milestones in life. But when we look at a profession, when we look at anybody, and in any stage of life, be it someone working in an MNC, be it, so we always understand that the importance of his or her institution. There are certain things which are ingrained in an individual, and we actually carry them as an individual in the flag end of our life. Those are values that, and those are other very, very important and sensitive aspects of the culture that our school has inculcated in us. So to that extent, I completely agree with you. Yes, I think the role of a school is far more. And this indeed is a very, very thought-provoking statement. So I think great exchange of thoughts. I thank all of you for being with us here today evening. And I'm sure members of the esteemed audience also had a great session with some wonderful takeaways. We look forward to your continued support in the sessions to come. So I think this year, this will be our last session. We look forward to see you again in 2023. We wish all of you a very happy holiday. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful session, no doubt. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And a happy New Year greetings to everyone too.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.